What happens when you take the rap stylings of Atlanta trap stars with that tonal aggression and rapid flow spliced with synchronized adlibs and consistently high energy, and mix it in with the addictive synth-led melodies and glitchy 808s that encompasses the recent rage trend in rap? Well, you get something like Homixide Gang with the Opium Label's latest stars in Homixide Beeno and Meechie, slowly but surely showing Carti fans and the rest of the world just who they are and why they aren't exactly just what meets the eye. They're not only Opium signees, but also friends of Playboi Carti, with their interpersonal relationships seemingly preceding their musical partnerships. In fact, Homixide Gang as a collective had been mentioned in trap music as far back as 2017, in featuring Young Thug's song All the Smoke. With those lyrics actually being included in recent articles and news that the collective might be in the next line of Atlanta's unwarranted string of RICO charges, Homixide Gang have clearly been around in some capacity for years now. Before they were publicly on Opium though, they were getting sneaky cosigns on Whole Lotta Red, hinting at the group's affiliation with their soon-to-be boss. Not only was the track Beno off of Whole Lotta Red named after Homixide Beeno, but on the track Stop Breathing, Carti references more than just his affiliation with the group's young members. It's interesting to see an artist talk about his artists in a song before he talks about them on social media or in interviews, but given how closed off Carti is with his personal life and public appearances, it not only fits him perfectly, but also fits this whole mystical aura that he's been building for almost a half decade now. And also with this, it lends that mysticism to Homixide Gang's image and making those prospective fans like myself all the more engaged in what the duo has planned and prepared for audiences going forward. But before we get there, let's look at the group's music leading up to this, with their albums Snotty World and Snotty World Deluxe, as well as a plethora of other banging singles, being some of the most underrated music released last year that I heard. Their album was not only hard-hitting and impressive from a sonic standpoint, but showed two young rappers who clearly knew the kind of music they wanted to make. And that's what makes Opium stand out as a whole label. None of the artists on here sound unsure of who they are or how they want to sound. There's a clear consistency and ideation from Ken, Lone, Beno, and Meechie that are hard to find in the rest of the underground, where figures like Sofega are struggling to find balance in their style and consistency of what they want to do, what they can do, and what's expected of them. The Opium Label, on the other hand, knows exactly what they want to deliver. It may not be for everybody, but I'll be damned if it doesn't sound exactly how they intended it to. So you can probably understand my excitement leading into Homixide lifestyle, especially after the relative success of Ken Carson's X and Destroy Lonely's No Stylist. You know, both found viral success outside of Carti's fan base, with Freestyle 2 for Ken and No Stylist for Destroy Lonely, with a remix actually of No Stylist even garnering, I believe, over 500,000 videos used on TikTok. You know, this is just proving how wide of an audience that these young stars can really build for themselves, and especially build for themselves in a way that's outside of Carti's shadow. And that's what I think is really, really, really important for everyone, every young member at Opium to focus on right now. While I think the albums are definitely products of new and relatively naive artists, they both strive to make music that they ended up making. For example, while I may not be a huge fan of the electric guitar-led melodies on the whole of the album No Stylist, I can see the influence, the appeal, and the reason that he did include that. And despite that specific element not being my cup of tea, it does help characterize him as a product of his beloved influences like new wave bands and even bands like Deftones that partially gained such legendary status through opposing the status quo, or at least doing their own thing in a precise, artful, and properly communicative way. For Ken, he had the loudest caffeinated album that I've heard this year. Production, mixing, ad-libs, sonic presence, everything, it just felt loud. And that loudness, again, may not be everybody's cup of tea, but it was mine. Well, I think Ken has a lot of work to do considering his personality on these tracks and be more instrumental with what he decides to rap about. There's a lot to say about the vibe that he's created with X and the number of ravishingly decorated songs that so many other rage rappers strive to even reach a semblance of. The unruly bass on Freestyle 2, the impressive tonal switches in Ken's inflection on Freestyle 1, MDMA, be one of my favorite beats of last year with him and Lone doing it justice. Leading up to Homixide Lifestyle, the expectations were set in stone as high and mighty, making it possibly difficult for the duo to deliver on exactly what fans might want from them. It's good to see these guys take the normal route of an up-and-coming rapper, doing their own tours, occasionally opening for their label boss and Playboi Carti, and releasing music on their own with little to no features, giving themselves the full shine on their respective debut albums. Having no features outside of their camps and collectives is such an underrated decision on everyone's part, and I'm pretty sure that it is kind of Carti's oversight that is really solidifying that in stone, and I think that's a great precedent to set moving forward for a lot of these rappers that, you know, might reach for an Uzi feature or reach for, you know, that future feature. I think that's a little bit out of the bag, but, you know, reaching for what might be considered unattainable to people and, you know, sort of basking in that cloud. It's like it produces a moment and a hill that you might not be able to climb up ever again, and sort of taking that in strides like the Opium Label is doing. It just works really well for, I think, the space that they're operating in and how it sort of opposes everyone else's way of going about it, and also just kind of the audience that they attract through Carti and how that sort of just naturally filters through. Eventually, though, I'd expect to hear them all on a song together, and seeing fans question why Carti isn't on these albums is a little bit confusing. We are getting plenty of songs with Lone and Ken and Homixide Gang and Lone. We get to hear all these individual talents working together and bouncing ideas and energy off of one another. Why would Carti want to interfere with this and risk taking the spotlight away from the youth that he's trying to support in the first place? Going into Homixide Lifestyle, I was surprised to see the caliber of features that there was, but they were fitting in the scope and style of what they were going for. Bigavelli and 500 make for great additions to a few tracks, with Bigavelli's deep tone of voice especially standing out. It's easily their longest project to date as well, coupling along with Ken and Destroy Lonely in that aspect. And while I'm not still convinced that more songs make for a better album, it definitely gives the versatility of people liking some of their takes on the genres versus others. The explicitly obvious guitar samples on songs like Life and Dracon are in the same camp as songs like Crystal Castles, Make It Stop, and Dangerous from No Stylist, but personally, I like Homixide Gang's take on it a little bit more. The whole tape could maybe be my favorite 3 of the Opium releases that we got this year, but I'm gonna hold my tongue on saying that until I give it a few more weeks to listen. But it's hard to say if there's much to even simmer at all, considering just how hollow the album is from any lyrical or thematic standpoint, but I think everybody knows that going in. But this could surely and will surely be a deal breaker for some people out there, but you know, I think most people listening to Homixide Gang's newest album are going into this with expectations that will be met if they're going in with the expectations that I think most people are, and it's going to pay off for them. These two share the same vocal aggression from Ken and almost a mix of the lively experimental instrumentals from Destroy Lonely with the pounding invasive beats from Ken Carson's X. But they shouldn't be defined by their contemporaries, because Homixide Gang have been on my radar for a while now. There's something irreplaceable about the beat selection and subsequent rapping on top of these extravagant and hard-hitting instrumentals from the duo that make them superior to so many others in their lane at the moment. SSM was really the song that solidified their success in both categories to me, and while it hasn't yet cracked 2 mil on Spotify, it sounds like a hit regardless of the numbers, and that's what makes these guys seem like lightning in a bottle. They could really catch on at any moment, but they're not trying to go viral or reach into the mainstream. Sure, a TikTok trend could circulate around one of their songs like we saw with Destroy Lonely and Ken Carson, but that's not the point, that's just the byproduct. They're making music on their own terms, and that's not only the best way to do it, but something that is usually hard to communicate through your music intent. But Beeno and Meechie do that as well, if not better, than their label teammates. I'm looking forward to whatever comes next from Homixide Gang. Will they tease a deluxe and drop it? Or will they pull a Carti and tease it and never drop it? You know, who's to say? But I'm not sure if the duo have the clout to pull off the ladder of what Carti's doing just yet. But what do you guys think of them? What are your favorite songs off the album? For me right now, my favorite songs are 5 Ways, V Friends, None to Some, Shots Off, and BB. I don't really have any explicit reasons why they're my favorite right now, but they just seem to be the ones that keep falling into rotation for me a lot. But I'm really curious to hear what you guys thought of this, especially in relation to No Stylist and X. Do you think it was better than those? Worse? Why? Why not? Tell me about it. If you enjoyed this video, and especially if you made it this far, please like and subscribe, comment, all that stuff really does help me out at the end of the day. And yeah, I enjoyed writing this and recording this, so thank you for watching.